The Bank of Canada did the right thing this morning. They kept the overnight rate at 2.25%. And it looks like now moving forward that there won't be too many future cuts, barring anything big that comes into the economy that we're not aware of right now. In fact, some people believe there could be rate hikes at some point in 2026 or 2027. Nothing major, but that's kind of what the general consensus is right now. And I think this is a very good thing. And I'll tell you a few reasons why. First of all, you might be saying, well, Tom, I have a variable rate, or I was going to get a variable rate. And, why couldn't they just keep cutting, right? Doesn't it feel like Canada's not in a very good place? The economy is not good. And I think what we have to remember is that the Bank of Canada has one mandate: keep inflation at their target. And even though it's like slightly higher than that target right now, based on the last information that we had, it's a bit of a lagging indicator. They must feel pretty certain that they're doing their job, and that's why they're not going to cut any further. Second thing, the job numbers that came out recently, although when you really dig into the data, most of it is just part-time employment, it still is employment, and the job numbers were better than expected. Seems like the job numbers go from like great to really bad to great to really bad every single month that they come out. And then the biggest thing is that technically from the GDP numbers, Canada is not in a recession right now, even though for a lot of people, like the real estate market's been in a recession, but I guess the general economy is not technically in a recession if you believe all the numbers that are put out there, right? So I think those are a few key things at why they held today. I believe they made the right decision. And I'll tell you from my vantage point as an active real estate agent, why I think it was really important that they've not decreased rates again today. Trust me, I have a variable rate on one of my properties. Like, I would love if they kept going down. That would be super helpful for me. But here's what I think. We need some type of certainty in the market. And I can tell you from both sides, most people will say, well, buyers were waiting. No, I'm telling you, sellers were the ones talking about potential rate decreases more than anybody else. So here's how I'm looking at it. As rates were either going up really fast or more recently coming down fairly quickly, a lot of buyers that were maybe thinking of getting in the market were going, well, why don't I just wait to see what Bank of Canada does next? Because the fixed and the variable rate are pretty close. And in fact, a good friend of mine called me this morning. He has a renewal coming up. He's like, here's my two options. What do I do? What do you think's going to happen? Obviously, we can't predict, too far out here. Most economists believe like they're now in a holding pattern for 12 to 18 months where they're going to stick here unless something happens that we're not aware of. But a lot of buyers were going, well, I could get into the market now, but prices have slowly continued to drop. And I've been watching the market, and the properties that I like maybe aren't selling or they're reducing their prices. So I'm just going to watch from the sidelines, which has been pretty smart strategically based on what's happened recently. Also thinking, well, rates could come down further. So what's the point of jumping in now? Now that there's certainty that this is probably where we stick for a while, I think that's a really good thing for the overall market. Doesn't mean prices go up. I do think it means that transactions will start going up a little bit in early 2026. Now, we've talked about the buyers. Let's talk about the sellers, because I actually think this is maybe more important and isn't talked about as much. The number one feedback that I get from people that we're talking to with our active listings is, well, Tom, we could decrease the price, or we could take it off the market in December and list in the new year. And, there could be another rate cut. It was like this big talking point that a lot of sellers that have an active listing on the market were focused on. Well, if there's a rate cut, maybe that means more activity. Maybe that means I could get my price. And I think, honestly, that's just not the case, because still at this moment in time, even though the variable is looking pretty good, from at least the sources that I have, most people are telling me still 75% of mortgage renewals or new mortgages are going with the fixed rate. So I think there's actually a bigger delta on the seller side, so that if sellers understand, Bank of Canada's done for at least a while now. Waiting till spring next year isn't going to change the rate environment very much if you're a seller. So here's what your option is today. You could wait until the new year and just hope that there's more activity, but it's not likely that prices are going to go up. So I actually believe them holding rates is going to get the sellers that were waiting for something to happen to understand, okay, this is where we're at today. If this is my best offer, then I'll consider taking it. Or just saying, well, no, like I'm not taking anything other than this price. I can sit on the market and wait here, but it's probably not going to happen. And I think that is actually a very, very good thing, because it will clear out the overpriced inventory that's sitting there and that never really made sense. And then the new stuff that comes to the market will be in today's environment. So that's how I'm looking at today's announcement. Although everyone kind of assumed that they're going to hold rates anyways, I think it's a good thing that buyers and sellers, we understand the rate environment we are in right now. Even though the bond yields did go up a little bit, so the fixed rate might jump up a little bit more in the next little bit, you should probably lock in a rate if you do have something coming up in the next 90 to 120 days. But I'd love to know what your thoughts, what do you think of what the Bank of Canada did today? My name is Tom Storey. Thank you so much for watching. And remember, home is where your story begins.